Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell here. The new year is upon us, and even under the best of circumstances, the creative process can cover some pretty rocky terrain, and our spidey senses tell us 2025 may bring even more challenging conditions. Now more than ever, we believe everyone is creative, but smart creatives don't go it alone. That's why we hope you'll join us and other awesome creatives on January 1st for the SparkFile 2025 New Year Creativity Kickoff. At this one-day virtual retreat, you'll clarify what you want to create and how you want to get there. You'll meet other makers, you'll strengthen your creative resolve, and you'll leave with an action plan for making your creative dreams a reality. It's all happening on January 1st. Visit thesparkfile.com to register for the SparkFile 2025 New Year Creativity Kickoff and to take advantage of early registration incentives like lower pricing. Y'all, in 2025, let's link arms, fear less, and create more. We'll see you there.
The SparkFile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, where we believe that everyone is creative, but smart creative people don't go it alone.
I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell, and we are creativity coaches who help people clarify and accomplish their creative goals.
You should know that just by listening to this podcast, you are joining a warm and wonderful clan of creatives.
But you might also be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File?
A Spark File is a place where you consistently collect all of your inspirations, all of your fascinations. Every episode, we're going to reach into our personal Spark Files and exchange some sparks. And from time to time, we're going to talk to some folks who spark us too.
And your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to take some of those sparks of inspiration and make something of your own. So without further ado, let's open up the Spark File. Laura Camion.
Oh, Suze, how you doing?
I'm well. Am I to understand that you shall be sharing a spark with me?
I shall be sharing a spark with you. And today it's really, I don't know, I'm excited to share this with you because this spark has been kind of rattling around in my brain for many months now. But in recent weeks and due to recent events, it has kind of come into full focus and full feeling. Exactly. It was one of those like, here's a half of a spark, and now I see the whole picture.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to tell you about it because I think I mentioned this little bit a few months ago. Two of my lovely friends at Little Island in New York City invited me to a talk by playwright Susan Laurie Parks.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think I told you like there was about 14 different things that she said that sparked me. She was incredible. Incredible. And on this particular day, she was talking with Mayora Carter, a real estate developer, an urban revitalization strategy consultant, also a MacArthur Fellow and Peabody Award-winning broadcaster.
Wow.
So there was some accomplished ladies on the stage. And I did not realize that in addition to being a Tony Award, Pulitzer Prize winning playwright, Susan Laurie Parks is also hugely into urban revitalization.
Wow.
And she's working on various projects to revitalize her neighborhood. And she was talking, among other things, but the one that relates to this spark is that she was talking about the value of communal spaces, like places where people gather, how these places literally save lives. For example, if there is a community with a vibrant community center, a YMCA, a library, and the like, if and when a natural disaster hits, statistically, fewer people die in those neighborhoods than in the neighborhoods that do not have a community center. And the reasons, like, one seems obvious. Of course, there's a place to go if you need to go somewhere.
Right.
But number two, even when you are not there, those people who see you on a regular basis, who
Yes.
you gather with, they're the ones who will say, "Hey, we haven't seen Joe in a day or two. Let's go check on
Yes.
Joe." So, knowing the people in your neighborhood can literally save your life. And she said so much more, but that little seed started to grow inside
Mhm.
of me. And it turns out that various studies show that social isolation can increase the risk of premature death by like 29%,
Mm.
which is on par with like the effects of smoking or obesity.
Yes.
So if you're like a lifelong smoker or you're socially isolated,
Yes.
same risk, same risk.
Yes. Yes.
But in contrast, people who engage with their communities tend to live longer. One long term study found that strong social connections can boost life expectancy by as much as 50%. And then, so that's been rattling around for a little while. And then more recently, when the news of the election results arrived, and you and I felt a very real need to connect with each other and connect with our Spark File community.
Yeah.
And our community members started to reach out, checking on us, checking on each other, and expressing a desire to be together.
Yes.
Once we gathered, even online, we all made space for each other's really, really big feelings. And there was no feeling that was wrong or unacceptable. Some people were numb, in denial, or disassociation. Some were angry, ready to take up the fight, get to work. Some, like myself, weepy and sleepy. Like, I just want to cry it out and then I want to get some good sleep. That's it. I
I
always feel
just
better after that.
I just also have to add that when you announced that you felt weepy and sleepy, there emerged in the chat a whole host of other dwarves. There was weepy and
Favorite
sleepy
Disney.
and like groggy and foggy. Like there were all of these
Yes.
other, it was
So many
great.
good
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
So clever. But yeah, I always sometimes it's just very intentional. Like, I need to figure out, can I watch something or listen to something that will make me cry, and then I go to sleep. Just weep a little and sleep a little. But the point is, we were all together
Yeah.
and validating all of the human emotions that come up and supporting each other. And I was once again reminded of the value and the vital nature of community. And it's not just a nice to have, it's essential.
Yeah.
So, as it turns out, I'm learning that being a part of a community can not only save our individual lives and increase our well being, it can actually save democracy.
I'm interested.
Okay, lean in, Suze. So I learned a lot of this from the documentary Join or Die, which is currently on Netflix. I don't know if you've
Oh,
seen it or
I
not.
have not.
Oh my goodness. So it turns out that way back in the mid 90s, a social scientist, and I fucking love that there are social scientists. Can I just say, come on. A social scientist named
Who would you rather make out with, a social scientist or a historian?
Oh my God, why do you
I
give me
know.
these tough choices?
Tough choices. You think about that. You get
It's
back
going
to
to come
me.
down to sense of humor. Which one of them can actually like have a laugh about?
Sense of humor,
Yeah.
fresh breath, and brain.
Then we'll see about it.
Great.
So, a social scientist named Bob Putnam started to sound the alarm about our democracy. This is in the mid 90s. In the mid 90s, Suze, he wrote a paper about how Americans were joining fewer and fewer clubs. And by clubs, he meant everything from book
Yes.
clubs, yeah, ring a bell, bowling
Yes.
clubs, religious clubs, the Elks Lodge, the Optimist Club, all the rest of them. And then it's funny because in the documentary, they talk about how He wrote this paper. It made a big splash. People, he was all over
Yes.
the news. But
Yes.
then people, a little backlash, they were like, oh, that's not true. You didn't think about this, this, and this. And so he was like truly bothered by this criticism. And he was like, I'm going to I'm going to dig in further. He spent 5 more years
Yeah.
researching, doubling down on like all of his outcomes were like, no, it's actually happening and it's still happening. The decline is still, in the works. So in 2000, he published the book Bowling Alone. And Bowling Alone is all about the decline in America's social capital.
Laura Camion, I heard him being interviewed on NPR, and I am so, so excited you're doing this, Spark.
Listen, I was just like, wow, this is a hot topic and it's resonating within me. So, what is social capital, you say? Social capital refers to the networks, norms, and social trust that enable society to function effectively. Whether that is joining a bowling league, participating in local organizations, volunteering, or simply engaging in face to face interactions, these activities weave the bonds that form communities.
Mm,
And Bob Putnam tried to warn people.
yeah.
Many people took notice. Susan, in this documentary, the Clintons, Pete Buttigieg, Priya Parker, they're
Yeah.
all in this documentary. Like his work really
Oh my
moved them.
God. Yes.
And all of them understood the significance of this decline. One of the most poignant stories in the documentary that he tells is Bob talks about seeing JFK speak in his inauguration in the 1960s. And he heard him say live, you know, on stage with his own ears, he heard JFK say, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what
Mhm.
you can do for your country. And
Wow.
this is going to get me a little bit choked up because Bob talks about how he heard that as like, I thought he was speaking right to me.
Mm,
I have skills and I need to ask myself, how can I use them to, for the powers of good? And he said that he heard it as reverie, that music that's like, um, oh, charge. He was like, it felt to me like he's saying, we're moving forward. We're going out there to get it done. We're doing it like it's a call to a new era.
yeah.
That's how he heard it. And he dedicates his life to it, right? And he applies his skills in the best way he knows how and things he believes can help America. And he then in this documentary is like, in retrospect, what happened right after that is Martin Luther King was shot. People fought against integration and civil rights, and consumerism and individualism grew, and what's in it for me grew. And, we continued down a really dark path to where we are today. And he says, looking at it now, it wasn't reverie, it was taps.
Oh,
It was,
yeah.
the end of an idea. It was
Yeah.
signaling like the decline of our country. Ooh, it was to me like the most powerful moment in this documentary because he gets really choked up talking about it too.
Yeah, I've heard when I heard him speak, he was so filled. I don't know if he actually said this or if I thought this. It's been a minute since I heard it, but he either said or I thought he's like the person in a scary movie who's trying to warn
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
of what's coming and
Yeah.
nobody will listen, nobody will pay attention, and it's like attempts are futile.
Yes, and he really did make a splash on multiple occasions over the last 25, 30 years. And yet,
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah.
And I want to stress something because I'm going to talk about how he talks about clubs and the heyday of clubs and associations, et cetera. He isn't over romanticizing like the 1950s. He's not advocating like we get women back in the kitchen and men back in the Elks Club. He's advocating for all kinds of gatherings because they are all useful.
Yeah.
Again, he's saying our participation in communal activities isn't just nice to have, it's the lifeblood of a healthy, functioning democracy.
Mm.
So, why does community hold this power? Like, why is it so influential? Bob laid out all this evidence in the book, and it's all talked about in the documentary. But the evidence shows that this decline in civic engagement was making people unhappier and increasing their distrust in the government.
Mm.
Put simply, the data showed that the more we withdraw from communal life, the more we fracture the very fabric that holds us together.
Mm.
Why is that? Here's a few reasons. One is how we treat each other is based on social agreement. As they explain it, like if you cheat someone and that someone has a social network, people are going to hear about it. Because I have more to lose by people hearing that I'm a cheat, I'm more likely to be honest. It will keep me honest. But it grows from there. When you're part of a community, I'm not going to cheat you. I'm going to be nice to you, even if I don't know you, simply because I know that you're a member of this community. You're also a member of this same community that I'm a member of, and it produces trust. And the knowing of each other, oh, Suze, it just made me think. And this documentary does not go into all of the nooks and crannies of the online nature of our lives now. I think there's other documentaries that do that well enough, but it makes me think about like the cruel things that people say and do online because there's no consequence.
Mm.
We're not a member of the same community
Yeah.
online. Your people are never going to know me. I might not even have my real name there.
Yeah.
Um, but when you and your neighbors, are meeting up for a book club or a religious gathering, a picnic, anything, people are going to know. And
Yeah.
I could be ousted if I don't treat people well. So clubs teach us how to treat each other. And in many cases, they actually teach us how democracy works. Voting on things as a group, speaking in front of the group, making a case for things. The skills that we need to engage in civic life are practiced and polished in communal spaces.
Mm.
We learn to debate, compromise, empathize, and collaborate, not on grand stages, but within our local meetups, our hobby groups, our volunteer efforts. And a society that lacks these touch points risks becoming polarized, mistrustful, and disengaged. Research has shown that individuals who participate in community activities are more likely to vote, volunteer, and engage in civic duties. This sense of belonging is what keeps democratic systems vibrant and resilient. And when we don't participate in these things and learn how to engage with each other, a distrust of the government can set in.
Ugh.
I do want to acknowledge that some of the clubs of the past did not have values that we would like to continue. I think it's good that they died out. There's a few more I wouldn't mind seeing die out. But many of the clubs that go back decades stood for values that we could use more of now, I think. I don't know if I ever told you this, Suze, but when Wes and I had our mid-century home, which we
Yeah.
loved so much, I went in search of original like mission and value statements from some of the clubs and organizations that existed in the 50s.
Really?
I did. And I framed them and I put them up. So I had the 4 H Club, the Optimist Club, the Rotary Club. And I found them and I framed them and they were up in the house. I still have them, I'm sure, but I don't have the wall space right now.
Wow.
But just to share, and I love them, like they were meaningful to me. And I remember being young and I was a member of 4-H, but I wasn't a member of those like older man's clubs, obviously, but I was aware of them. And there was heightened sense, I guess, for me of these values. So just as an example, just values that were once agreed upon and upheld among groups of people. I want to share with you the four-way test that they used in the Rotary Club. This is the one that I have framed. This Rotary Club, when they were deciding the most ethical way to act or speak. The four questions of the Rotary Club's four-way test are: is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Huh.
And if it did not pass that four-way test, you did not speak it or proceed.
Mm.
And as I read like this crap that I'm seeing people post online, I think, my God, we have fallen down a dark hole.
It does not pass the Rotary Club
It
four-way test.
Does not pass it. I mean, can you imagine what how different our lives would be if we checked, even with ourselves, just check in, like, is it
Yeah.
the truth? Will it
Yeah.
benefit all involved?
Yeah.
Is it fair to everybody involved? Again, I don't love that some of these clubs began as men only, but I am inspired by the idea of some of the values that they attempted
Yeah.
to uphold. And without clubs and organizations with bylaws and agreed upon missions, we are missing something.
Mm.
What is fascinating is to go back further in time when our country was just being established. Alexis de Tocqueville, a Frenchman that came to study America in the 1830s, reported back, this is a quote: "Wherever at the head of some new undertaking you see the government in France or a man of rank in England, in the United States, you would be sure to find an association. Clubs and associations literally built our country." So, how did we get to the place where people became more individualized and less likely to be joiners?
I have an idea.
You do? I've got some and I'm going to share. And I also reflected on, like, when did I stop? I was in high school, I was a member of everything. I
You were the
mean,
president of everything.
well, or the secretary or the vice president or something of everything.
Same.
Yeah,
Same.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I do know there was a time where I totally feel that I was like, I don't know, I'm not really a joiner. I don't want to join things like that. One, I was busy with my work, real
Mhm.
busy. And when I wasn't busy working, I was busy creating things.
Mhm.
No, which is a community in and of
Which
itself.
is a community. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. But do you want to say your theory before I?
Well, I think the introduction, the invention of the internet and social media,
Yeah.
and people being sort of more isolated and more inclined to uh, have their and I am not judging. I am as guilty as
Yeah.
anybody else.
Yeah.
Engaging in that way, where it's almost like a faux sense of community.
Yeah. Some people are absolutely certain that the problem is technology.
Yeah.
Now, it goes back even further before the internet, because the decline in engagement really coincides with televisions arriving
TV.
in everyone's home.
Another
Yeah,
kind of technology. Yep.
exactly. So
Yeah.
televisions,
Shiny
the
objects.
internet, social
Yes.
media. Yeah. So the decline began in the 60s and it continues to this day. And as we well know, technology has only increased and only absorbed more of our time. The issue could also be attributed to increased work pressures, time at work expectations, urban sprawl, suburban growth, gaps in income, fragmentation, polarization, all of that. One person in the documentary mentioned, they didn't expand on this too much. Again, it doesn't go super dark. But one person mentioned the very real possibility that the government wanted these clubs and gatherings to lessen because they were increasing the power of the groups involved. Like, when people gather, they gain power. So
Mhm. Sure.
civil rights
Yep.
were increasing, women's
Unions.
rights were
Yep.
increasing, labor unions were increasing. They were all gaining ground, thanks in part by the strength of their organizations.
Yeah.
So whether it was intentionally discouraged or whether we got seduced into thinking that our social media connections would be enough, I don't know. We don't really know. But it's important to know that building community is not just about like being a part of a big network of clubs, big memberships, global groups. Community connection can be small, it can be intimate, it can be spontaneous, it can be the neighbor who checks on you when you're sick.
Yes.
It could
Yep.
be the book club that becomes a safe space for connection, art class where strangers bond over shared creative frustrations and creative joys.
Yeah.
It's logging into the Zoom and seeing your SparkFile community of creators supporting each other. Like
Yeah.
every bit of participation counts. So, what do we make of it, Suze? The answer might lie in small, deliberate acts of reconnection,
Mm.
starting a conversation with a neighbor,
Yes.
join a class or a group that interests you, or start a group.
Yes.
Sign up to volunteer, invite others into spaces where they can contribute and feel seen. These actions really are the threads that weave us back into a collective. They remind us that in joining, we are also choosing to live more fully. I also think that advocating that social sciences, political science, government continue to be taught in schools, that libraries and community centers stay open. And we have to fight for some of those.
Yeah.
We have to fight for our libraries right now. We have to fight like
Yep.
hell. And we want them to stay open and we want them to be able to offer clubs and associations. In a world where so much drives us toward disconnection, technology, busy schedules, the very structure of our modern lives, we do have the power to choose differently. And I feel like this is a moment where it is essential for us to listen to Bob Putnam, really listen to the warnings. Like we've seen what's happened. I think that we've got to recognize community is not optional. It's a cornerstone of our existence. And when we engage, we don't just gain support for ourselves, we contribute to a society capable of preserving democracy and nurturing the members of our society.
Mm.
In the spirit of join or die, I want to say, let's choose to join. Let's be joiners. Let's build, share, sustain the spaces that keep us alive and thriving. And remember that in community, we don't just survive, we flourish.
Laura, I love this. I cannot wait to watch this documentary. And it is further reminder and evidence how critical this
Yeah.
is, what you're talking about, both to our individual well being and health,
Yep.
but also to the well being and health of our social fabric of the nation.
I
It's
think about
huge.
when even the conversation we had about moral distress and the powerlessness, the element of powerlessness that comes from all of us feeling like we're our own little island, we're individuals, and we don't have any power to do anything. But collectively, we do. Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has."
Ah, fabulous. Fabulous.
Yeah, I think maybe like the most important thing we can do right now is remind ourselves that we are not alone and let other people know that they are not alone.
All right. I'll take that up. I'll
Ditto.
take that
I've
up.
been thinking a lot
Yeah.
about like, all right, Cammy, and what are you going to do?
Yeah.
We'll report in on what clubs we've joined,
I feel like
friends.
it's so interesting because at the outset of any season of the Spark File, there's sort of you and I are just surprising each other with sparks. And
Yeah.
I feel like this season, I am really seeing a trend maybe of what's on our mind and do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean because I had a list of sparks that I'm like, great, I've got plenty here when it
Yes.
comes time to write for this season. And so much has transpired
Yes.
that has blown us sideways, flaming
And that we feel like we need
curveballs.
to respond to
That's right.
first for ourselves and then maybe bring it here. But
That's
yeah,
right.
it really is. It does feel like it's responsive to kind of the things that are happening around us.
The moment.
The moment, Laura Camian. That
Mhm.
was wonderful. Thank you for that. And I maybe I'm going to go watch that documentary
Watch that
now.
documentary. It is interesting. There are plenty of places where I feel like it could go deeper, but also I could name other documentaries who've already done that deep work. And this really stays on track talking about this thing.
But also, if we want to go deeper, we can dive into Bob Putnam's work.
Oh yeah, he has
Yeah.
several books,
Yeah.
Making Democracy Work, Bowling Alone. Yeah, all of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Laura. That's
My
wonderful.
pleasure.
Ooh, friends, that's it. This episode of the Spark File was made on the lands of the Lenape and the Mohican people. And as always, we hope it put another big old bunch of sparks in your file. Listen to me. If there's a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you'd like to learn more about how to coach with us to accomplish your creative goals, you can email getcreative@thesparkfile.com or reach us through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We will even happily take your feedback. Please send it in. But know there is a price of admission. First, you've got to share a creative risk that you have taken recently.
You can follow us on social at The Spark File and be sure to subscribe, rate, and 5-star review this podcast. It really helps other listeners to find us. Also, if you like this podcast, we hope you'll share it with people that you love. And if you didn't like it, go join a different club.
If something lights you up and gets your creative sparks flying, we're writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It is your turn to take that spark and fan it into a flame.
You know, you got to take it
and make it.
And join it.
Join us.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell here. The new year is upon us, and even under the best of circumstances, the creative process can cover some pretty rocky terrain, and our spidey senses tell us 2025 may bring even more challenging conditions. Now more than ever, we believe everyone is creative, but smart creatives don't go it alone. That's why we hope you'll join us and other awesome creatives on January 1st for the SparkFile 2025 New Year Creativity Kickoff. At this one-day virtual retreat, you'll clarify what you want to create and how you want to get there. You'll meet other makers, you'll strengthen your creative resolve, and you'll leave with an action plan for making your creative dreams a reality. It's all happening on January 1st. Visit thesparkfile.com to register for the SparkFile 2025 New Year Creativity Kickoff and to take advantage of early registration incentives like lower pricing. Y'all, in 2025, let's link arms, fear less, and create more. We'll see you there.